What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. I can't believe this is a thing. We're gonna have to talk about it though, because the hilarious conclusion to Nintendo apparently figuring out VR a long time ago, like over 20 years ago, and what they opted for instead is probably going to blow your mind if you haven't already heard about it, but I have to talk about it because it's just hilariously bad what ended up happening and what we ended up getting out of the whole thing. We'll go over all of that. We also found out Red Dead Redemption 2's file size. Castlevania got announced in a very confusing way to the internet, which we'll talk about that as well. First, though, before we get started, we're going over some quick news, guys. First, though, if you're new here, consider subscribing. We have a lot of stuff coming up, some good teardowns, and, of course, gaming news every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. So, we're going to start with Red Dead Redemption 2. The file size is fairly large. It's pretty big. It's over 100 gigabytes. And how did we find out about this? Well, remember that box art that we saw for the PlayStation 4? Well, we saw all angles of it, and people actually zoomed in, like magnified in, and the requirements for like storage space and stuff, it was on the back. Actually, you could technically see kind of the box art and everything here. And yes, 105 gigabytes, that's very large. So here's how I think this is going to go down. Even if you buy the disc, which I'm going to get it physically, even if, I mean, we'll see. I don't know if I'm getting a review copy from Rockstar for this. I'm looking forward to Red Dead, but if I bought it physically, I don't know how this is going to work out. I know 4K assets would probably be downloaded, so that disc is probably completely full, right? It's probably 50 gigabytes. It's probably completely full. Pop it in, and then I guess it has to download another 55 with 4K assets and everything. This is going to be massive, and then, of course, there's going to be updates. There's going to be a download for the online. This is going to get out of control, I think. This might end up being one of the biggest games on the PS4 and the Xbox One X. Now, we've seen, of course, Final Fantasy 15 get, almost 200 gigabytes? I think it's like 170 and 180 on PC. We'll see about Red Dead Redemption 2, because this is going to be something. Start deleting some game files now, or go out and get an external hard drive and plug it in, because you're probably going to need it. Also, keep your eyes peeled today, because Shin'en Multimedia appears to be announcing their next project. Now, you probably know Shin'en from Fast RMX. It was a game I really liked playing in the early days of the Switch. I say early days, the Switch hasn't even been out for that long technically. But I remember specifically playing that game a lot because it was a very clean-looking game, the file size was small, and of course it gave us the reminder that F-Zero still exists somewhere out there, because that game was just fun, super fun, great feeling of speed. They look to be set to announce their new project today after they put this out on Twitter. Hi everyone, if you asked yourself what Shin'en is doing since Fast RMX, news are coming tomorrow for Nintendo Switch. That was posted yesterday, so today you should see something if you have not already seen it, depending on when they post it up, as they posted that message up fairly early in the morning, around 9 a.m. Eastern Time. So look around, you might see this. I'm hoping it's something cool. Some people were saying F-Zero. I don't even know if they're going to go with that same genre. Maybe they try something completely different. I don't know. That's why it's exciting, because you never know what they could try here, but it sounds like their next project for the Switch it's getting announced today. Also, Codemasters did announce, finally, I know there's a lot of people who are waiting for the next Dirt. They announced Dirt Rally 2.0. I don't know why it's 2.0, it's not just 2. But they did announce the next Dirt Rally, of course. The last one was out back in 2015, so I know people have been waiting. I've never really been into Dirt myself. I know that they're good games. People talk about them a lot. When I worked at game stores, that was like one of the easiest games to sell at the time. But I've always really liked more of the, I guess Midnight Club, Need for Speed stuff. But we haven't had another Midnight Club since LA, and I really like that one. But I'm looking forward to Forza Horizon, of course, and maybe I'll look into Dirt Rally 2, since we don't have like a Midnight Club to look forward to, because Rockstar, and Take-Two discovered microtransactions. Anyway, this is actually coming up in February. You'll be able to look forward to the next Dirt Rally 2, February 26th, 2019. It's coming to PS4, Xbox One, and PC simultaneously. And if you're a Dirt fan, I guess get excited. Okay, guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's jump into some of the bigger stuff. We're starting right away with this Nintendo system, this Nintendo accessory that never was. It was close, apparently, and some of the ideas that they had at the time in their R&D department sound like they were well ahead of the 90s. Like, this sounds like stuff that is being worked on now with VR. We have other VR stuff to talk about that we'll get into, but this sounds like they would have, like, seriously broken some ground here with VR. Now, where do we hear about this? Actually, there was an interview with Jez Stan, who actually did work on Star Fox and the Super FX chip. I've talked about the Super FX chip. At the time of Star Fox, it was codenamed the Mario chip. In fact, I think if you have the board out, it actually says Mario chip on it. And it actually gave Star Fox the ability to do very primitive 3D visuals and stuff. And we've all seen Star Fox. If you have the Super Nintendo Classic, you've probably tried that and the second one out. Well, he had a new interview. This was before they talked to Eurogamer. He did mention it a bit, but nothing concrete. And then he had a new interview saying, I worked on a VR machine called The Supervisor for Nintendo, but unfortunately we fell out. A guy called Mr. Gunpei Yokoi canceled our project in favor of the Virtual Boy. This is a real thing I just read. They canceled it for the Virtual Boy. Yeah. Think about that for a second while we go over this. Remember that, because the Virtual Boy, which we used to call the Virtual Dog because it was so bad. He made a bet in the wrong direction, canceled our project, and his one was awful. It was a bad decision. We had full color and head tracking at a time where no one else did, but the Supervisor was canceled in favor of a system with no head tracking and red graphics. It was like the Vive headset that's on sale today, but made 20 years earlier. Of course, it wasn't as good because the Vive has better screens now, but ours was made a long time ago. We almost finished the Supervisor and it was canceled due to the Virtual Boy, which was a shame. VR gaming could have happened 20 years ago if they had kept us on. Now, Jesse, go on further to talk about kind of Nintendo and Hasbro and why Hasbro wasn't, I guess, interested in it, saying, to use VR, you have to wear some dorky thing. You look like a fool wearing it. Also, it's unsafe because your eyes are covered and you can't see what's happening in the real world, so you might slice your hand on a knife or fall down some stairs. Nintendo and Hasbro both shied away from doing VR systems because of product liability laws, which meant they could get sued for gazillions if someone hurt themselves whilst wearing it. They were very consumer-friendly companies that didn't want to be sued for anything, so we had to wait 20 years for Facebook to have the guts to buy Oculus and say, perhaps, though, naively, that it can do VR without getting sued. So, this is something. This is actually a fairly large revelation that, if it is as he is describing, hurts. This sounds like they had the technology and the ability to get VR started 20 years ago. Like, this is crazy because, of course, VR may not have been picked up as fast. I say as fast because we have PlayStation VR, for example, but at the time, we actually talked about VR in different TV shows and stuff, and we kind of had an idea of VR visors and everything, and honestly, I think VR actually would have gone over okay in the 90s because we had just that influence and it just sounded cool at the time, whereas now we have our phones right in front of our face and we don't care as much about VR anymore because we have immersive experiences in other ways. I mean, think about going from what we had at the time, which was the Super Nintendo, going to Nintendo 64, and instead you have an actual way to close off the world and look around with head tracking, by the way, which is insane to think about at the time. And then we would have gone through probably 20 years of development to now. There is a possibility that if it caught on back in the mid-90s, we could have almost have VR perfected now, as we're hearing different people at Facebook and stuff say we're about 10 years out from when VR will probably be really good. That's Mark Zuckerberg and other people say that. This was 20 years ago. So could we actually be in a society then that accepts VR enough to have it sell millions and millions and millions of systems without any issue, and it actually be good now? Could I have a holodeck in my house? Probably not, but I bet you VR headsets would be much smaller and much more interesting because the R&D would have been put behind it. This is insane to think about, but this also should make you think, what has been going on in R&D labs for the past 20 years? You know, what will we eventually run into as kind of catching on the mainstream that could have been there 20 years ago? It's hard to say, but this is a pretty big revelation as long as everything they're describing is accurate. But this isn't the first time they talked about the supervisor, which is a hilarious name, by the way. But there you go, guys. Let me know what you think about this one down below. You want that VR head tracking headset and everything back in, you know, the mid-90s? Too bad we got that Virtual Boy. Next up, we did get that announcement for Castlevania. It's going to have Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night, and Konami did announce it. And interestingly enough, it is a PlayStation exclusive, which is very interesting, as there are a lot of rumors going around about something Castlevania related for the Nintendo Switch outside of the Smash Bros. Announcements for Simon and Richter. It's very odd to see this unless there really is some ties with PlayStation. Now, they did say that Sony is helping to port, so there probably is some money being exchanged. Hey, we'll help you port this. We'll get this off the ground. You just got to bring it to PlayStation. But if you want to relive Symphony of the Night or Rondo of Blood, you'll be able to do that October 26th. So it's about a month away, and it's going to be $19.99. Now, there is some speculation that these are PSP games that are being emulated using the PSP emulator that's been found on the PS4 in the past. So it also opens up the door of, I wonder if they'll look into other games that they can bring from the PSP over to the PS4, maybe some Final Fantasy stuff like Crisis Core. That'd be kind of cool. I'd like to see Crisis Core come back, but for now, 2 Castlevania games, $19.99, end of October. The Switch is an interesting setup here, though, because, again, we had heard that there's something Castlevania. It's interesting that they would keep this just to the PlayStation. It makes you wonder if Konami has anything else that they're planning, or maybe not. It's hard to say. Maybe those rumors were just rumors and that was that. But we'll see going forward here. It's odd to waste the publicity and the hype around a Castlevania game with the Castlevania characters joining Smash on the Switch. Seems like a lot of money that Konami will just kind of be leaving on the table, but we'll see. Next up, let's talk about some current VR stuff going on. Now, if you remember a while ago, I got the Oculus Go and I said, hey, if VR is going to go to the next level, they need to be all in one. They can't have cables and the whole setup's the whole thing, and they do need to get smaller, which I think is something that they are working on. I mean, there's screens set up with batteries and motherboards and everything, so it's still going to be kind of large. Maybe we'll get to the point where it gets smaller, but we did find out that Project Santa Cruz is coming in next spring. Spring 2019, Facebook announced all of this. It's going to be $3.99, and they gave it a new name. It's actually being called Oculus Quest. It's a standalone VR unit that has 6 degrees of freedom, so it's going to be interesting to see if we get any big-time applications, big-time games that would be announced for it. There is word going around from a couple different people that apparently some new game is getting announced next week for VR that will make it more interesting or make it, I guess, more appealing to people. But that's kind of the issue we've had. This is going to get games like Moss, for example. Great game on the PlayStation VR, but I wouldn't call it a system seller. I don't think it's something you'd buy for $400. So that's kind of where we are right now. We need game companies to get behind this stuff and push these along. Even the PlayStation VR doesn't have the easiest time when it comes to games, big name games, I should say, going to it. So they always feel like more of experiences that you try out for like 10, 15 minutes, then kind of just put the headset away. So we'll see. Resident Evil 7 was probably the best game for VR so far to sell these things, but still nothing like that on like the Oculus Store or anything. But let me know what you guys think about this. All-in-one VR headsets. Do you think that is the next level for VR as we go along? And our last bit of news, we did get word from Shack News in an interview with developers that Divinity II Original Sin is actually coming to the Switch. It released at the end of last month, at the end of August, on the PS4 and the Xbox One. And this is a game that when it released on PC, it got rave reviews. Best RPG and everything. It is an awesome game overall. If you're a fan of kind of like the top-down style RPG games and everything, it is just a good game overall. It's very interesting the way that they kind of just announced it, that they're working on the Switch version, just in an interview.
So any plans for Nintendo Switch?
Yes, there are plans for it, but that's as much as I'll say. We have plans for a lot of things. But we're looking into everything. We want to get the game out, to as many players as we can. And so we're looking at the options.
They didn't have any other information. They don't have like a release date or even like the like nitty-gritty development stuff like resolution or frame rate or controls, HD rumble. They didn't have really anything. They were just saying that, yeah, we're working on it. We're going to put it on the Switch. So, you know, keep an eye out for that. Maybe that's something that shows up in Nintendo Direct. Maybe that's something they literally just put out a tweet and say, hey guys, it's coming next month or something. I don't know. But if you're a fan of Divinity II Original Sin, and I know there are a lot of people because when I put it up on Twitter, people got really excited. Hey, look forward to it. You'll be able to eventually, we don't know when, probably, maybe not the rest of this year because we're already getting into the holiday season. Maybe next year, you'll be able to have Divinity 2 kind of on the go with you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave today. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is that Nintendo Supervisor VR headset that never was. Do you think VR could have actually changed, like, through history if that did happen and it was mildly successful and everyone started looking at it then? What do you guys think about that? What kind of influence would that have had on the industry? It's crazy to think about, but let me know what you guys think about that. Of course, Divinity Original Sin 2, we just talked about that. What do you think there? And then all-in-one VR headsets. Do you think that is the next step for VR, guys? Let me know down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.